What? Well,
You know, my story about the post office and all this thing.
yeah.
That woman, other back against the wall, that's his wife. Yeah. Oh, I'm sending it. Yeah. And you said Brian to Lewis, is Lewis here? What?
The workshop.
I need like to move up, feel free. Hi, Paula. Hi,
Okay, it's time to start our workshop. Sarah, do you want to take it away? Yeah.
Thank you. Let me see slideshow. Interesting. Okay, great. Well, thank you all for coming today. I am Sarah Catanzarite. I'm the assistant town manager for those of you who don't know me here in the town of Fraser. And the purpose of this workshop is to talk about downtown development authorities and really dive into what those are, what plans of development are. This is intended to be informational to help inform the public of the upcoming ballot measures that we have related to downtown development authorities or DDA. Our understanding is that the average voter does not necessarily have a good understanding of what a downtown development authority is. So we're really trying to help with that here. The intention of this is not to advocate for or against these ballot measures, but simply to provide information and then to try to delve in a bit to a discussion of what the vision for Fraser downtown is and what sort of things we would like to see in a plan of development if the ballot measures were to pass. And even if they weren't, we still want a vision for our downtown. So still just kind of talking about some of our priorities there. I'm going to try to move through this first bit of information somewhat quickly because we do have a lot to cover, and then try to take a few questions. If they are lengthier or longer questions, I'm happy to talk after the session, or you can always call Antoinette, our town clerk, or myself with questions. So we'll try to keep this somewhat moving along and then hopefully have some time at the end to address additional questions so that we can be as helpful as possible here. So what is a downtown development authority? A DDA is a flexible quasi-governmental entity that is responsible for adopting and then implementing a downtown plan of development. So really it's meant to be a champion for a downtown area to foster economic development through kind of public infrastructure and improvements within a downtown area. I will circle back to the DDA boundary later, but this area in yellow here is the area that we are talking about in terms of the proposed Fraser Downtown Development Authority. One of the things that the DDA does is it has the option to use tax increment financing, which is a financing mechanism that is intended to help serve as a way to collect revenues to really kind of implement a community vision for a downtown area. The idea is that it takes kind of money that's being invested in a downtown area and that development and redevelopment and using that to catalyze future development projects. So what this looks like, this nifty graph here, we work with the county assessor. The county assessor comes out after the DDA is planned, after the DDA, if the DDA measure passes, a board is appointed, we have a plan of development. They come out and they take a baseline assessment of property values and property taxes that are being collected. After that, as the DDA is investing in the downtown area, whether that be putting in infrastructure, building out parks, things like that, The idea is that property values are going to go up, and with that increase in property values, property tax revenues go up. So what the DDA does is it is able to keep this tax increment that comes from that investment going into the downtown area. So typically you would have a number of mill levies. The town would get some money, the school district, the fire protection district, the rec district, the library. They continue to receive that property tax revenue that they normally would, as well as expected baseline growth that you would expect to get without the DDA present. But that additional increment goes to the DDA to be reinvested in the downtown area. What that allows the DDA to do is the town on behalf of the DDA can issue bonds. So bonds could be used to be paid for projects. Those bonds are then paid back through that tax increment revenue. It also allows them to do things like agreements with a private developer. Maybe you have a developer that is building a couple properties. They're willing to put in the streets, the sidewalks, the parks, whatever it is that you're looking to see down there. That developer puts those in an agreement up with the DDA and the town. And then again, through that future tax increment revenues that are coming in, that developer is paid back for those projects. So it allows us to take future tax growth and invest it on the front end with the idea that that is a catalyst for ongoing kind of development or redevelopment of a downtown area. Yeah.
A lot of people that are in the think this is the most confusing thing. So this is time to somebody really confused by this. If you are, raise your hand. It's confusing, and you can clarify it in mind.
So it's no new no new taxes. It's just a new source of tax revenue for the downtown area.
So to put it simply, it captures a portion of the increased valuations of property taxes that are reinvested into downtown. That's a very simple way of saying it. It's a portion of the increased valuations because special districts and everyone else going to continue to experience that baseline growth in their valuations, and the revenues that were received through the special districts, they'll see increases over time. This is a portion of that increase in valuations over time.
And this new standard collection that you see over here on the edge of the graph, that would be the DDA, has a 30-year lifespan, which I believe can be extended slightly. But at the end of that 30-year lifespan, then those standard taxing entities, your rec district or school district, they at that point would be capturing all of that growth in tax revenue.
Katie, I'd like you to do your demonstration. Yeah. Well, I figured out this piece of pie is that here's the current values of the land. Gets a little fatter as market gets fatter, but then as development continues and we get growth in there and new buildings and new construction, those values go up. And it's this piece of the pie that we're available to use for that tax increment financing. So it's no additional tax. And when we all met with, here we had multiple meetings, and there was the fire department was here and the school district was here and
Scott, rec district.
recreation district, and all of them supported this. They all felt that they would be getting enough and that just that potential for future growth because of this that we're putting in would offset their expenses. So that's it.
So Katie provided a perfect segue into past and future steps, how we got here, where we would go from here. But town staff started exploring this idea of a downtown development authority earlier last year. Worked with Downtown Colorado, Inc., which is a nonprofit organization that works with communities that are looking to develop their downtowns through different mechanisms, one of them being a downtown development authority and tax increment financing. We formed last summer a Downtown Development Authority Advisory Committee, which Katie was a part of, a number of different community members. We had 4 meetings with this committee and just kind of talked about downtown development authorities, tax increment financing, plans of development. And at the end, this group did unanimously vote to recommend to the Board of Trustees that they move forward with the formation of a downtown development authority. We also had some of our local developers participating. And then, as Katie said, the rec district, school district, fire district came to some of the different meetings, the county assessor, and they were all supportive. We then did a series of similar kind of micro sessions with the board at a number of board meetings in the fall. And then on December 6th, the board did pass Ordinance 504 to refer formation of a DDA and debt authorization for the DDA to special electors. And we will get into some of the election nitty-gritty towards the end of the session. But who can vote in this election does differ from your typical Fraser Board of Trustees mayoral election that's also happening on April 2nd. So we do have two ballot measures for April 2nd related to the Downtown Development Authority, its formation and the debt authorization. If it were to be approved by the special electors, those within the district, then the Board of Trustees would appoint a DDA Board of Trustees. That is typically by statute 5 to 11 members, the majority of which have to be from within the district, and at least one member from the town board would participate. That board would then draft a plan of development that would be presented to the Board of Trustees. And then that plan of development would need to be approved by the town Board of Trustees. Once all that happens, you can set your baseline assessment and start the clock on kind of collecting that tax increment financing, which can happen for 30 years. Any questions? Okay. So we want to spend a little bit of time talking about the plan of development because this really is an important document that would guide the DDA. So it's an official public document. It's meant to express a community vision for the downtown area. Any projects taken on by the DDA must be included in the plan of development. So this is where you really outline the vision, prioritize your projects, and think about things that you would want the DDA to spend their, that tax increment financing, and their time and resources on. Generally, your plan of development is going to include a breadth of public infrastructure and improvements. Some of those things are listed out here. It really can be any sort of infrastructure or improvement that's going to benefit the public. So Barry at the distillery, he can't, improve his kitchen per se. But if he had a rundown building and it wasn't seen as very attractive, he could maybe get a business grant through the DDA to, repaint the front of his building, to put out some landscaping, something like that. But generally roads, sidewalks, streetscaping, landscaping, bridges, utility infrastructure, marketing, promotion, events, it could be safety enhancements. There's really a wide range that could be included within this plan of development. So I wanted to give you just kind of the main gist and overview of a few different plans of developments for DDAs that currently exist in other Colorado communities. A number of these are linked to on our website. So if you'd like to delve into those and kind of see the full detail of those plans, you definitely can. The Eagle DDA has really focused on kind of branding and an identity for downtown, business support, and this idea of an experience economy. So they've done a number of events that have been funded and supported through their DDA. And I've seen other communities that have taken a similar approach. They've done summer concert series, farmers markets, artisan bazaars, things like that. The Longmont Master Plan of Development kind of has these 6 different areas that it then breaks down and has projects within. So focus on economic vitality, placemaking and urban design, really building out a creative district, connectivity and access projects, land use, and then leadership and management. The Nederland Plan of Development for the Nederland DDA broke their downtown into, I believe it was 6 different areas. And then they listed out specific issues to be addressed within those different areas and proposed improvements for those areas. So you can see their first street down here in the bottom corner, and then next to it a rendering of what they're hoping it would look like. Once they kind of build out commercial and retail space, bury power lines, parking, pedestrian improvements. These are very specific goals, and plans of developments generally can be great to have, kind of priorities and action items so you know what you're actually looking to do. But a lot of times they are left to be more broad and general. The idea is that this document will be an enabling document for the next 30 years. And so there may be projects that you haven't specifically thought of, right? So right now, Netherlands wants to address their parking. That makes sense. Maybe 10 years from now, they want a trolley that runs down Main Street, right? So if they've got an area, a bucket for multimodal transportation, that's the type of thing that could be included, right? 20 years from now, they want the Jetson airstrip. And so trying to kind of think ahead as well as of current priorities and building out some of those kind of larger buckets and vision areas. So you can see Inglewood's downtown plan. It does have, again, these kind of 5 broader categories: economy, jobs, and homes. On the homes note, I will mention that Avon passed a ballot measure to form a downtown development authority this past summer, and they earmarked in their draft plan of development that 50% would go towards workforce housing. And that was really the impetus for their downtown development authority to have revenues for that. And the other 50% would go towards infrastructure. Marketing and programming, public space enhancements, placemaking, mobility and transportation, and then land use and urban design. And they do within their plan then have a number of kind of sub areas and more specific goals. So any questions about that before we kind of delve into a discussion more specific to a downtown vision for Fraser? Okay, so I wanted to spend just a little bit of time to kind of talk about what we would like to see in a plan of development for Fraser. We would look to kind of build upon some of the work and the visioning that's already happened. The 2017 Fraser Downtown Strategic Plan involved, a birth of community engagement and kind of came up with 5 goals through that plan: developing a vibrant town center, preserving and building upon Fraser's character, developing a diverse and resilient economy, increased mobility choices, and expanding and diversifying local housing options. Downtown and economic development have also been a priority for this board, as well as a part of the strategic plan. A number of recent kind of initiatives and ongoing initiatives have been a part of this. The rezoning of the Riverwalk district to focus on mixed use, higher density, ground floor commercial was part of that. Trying to develop a Main Street initiative. We did this past year apply for and receive a grant to put infrastructure in on Clayton Court. So we're getting $1.5 million from the state of Colorado to put in roads and utility lines, heated sidewalks, things like that. As well as the Art Center initiative and the fundraising that's going on to try to kind of really have this anchor in the downtown Fraser to increase visitation. And then workforce housing and childcare projects. So Victoria Village is a huge project the town has undertaken. Hopefully we're going to have close to 200 units that would be just adjacent to the downtown area to provide affordable housing for families and local workforce. We're also looking to put a on-site early childhood education center. So grandkids is going to be expanding into that space and being able to double their capacity, as childcare has also been a critical need. So really want to think about all these kind of synergies and things that are happening that we see as really nice complements to each other in developing a more kind of vibrant and sustainable community here in Fraser. So again, there's 5 areas of the Downtown Fraser Strategic Plan, which I think provide a really nice starting point for this discussion. Developing that vibrant town center, really thinking about how we kind of preserve Fraser's character and funkiness, developing a diverse and resilient local economy, that supports our locally owned and operated businesses and fosters entrepreneurship, increasing mobility choices from getting around town on foot to regional travel and mass transit, and then again, expanding and diversifying those local housing options. So some of the challenges that we have identified as a town staff and in conversations with the board that have and continue to be kind of challenges for Fraser, again, obviously lack of affordable housing and not enough childcare kind of top the list there. Currently, the high cost of construction and commercial development. We're seeing a lot of people that want to come in and do residential development, but it's more difficult to get people on board to do the commercial development. There's a bit more risk in terms of return involved there. Especially in these winter months, the poor walkability around town. There's places that lack sidewalks entirely. Other places, the sidewalks are covered in ice, and have drainage issues coming up from the streets there. The lift is obviously a great option, a great free public option, does not serve all possible kind of public transit needs. So thinking about that. Parking comes up again and again, lacking an aging infrastructure, limited public gathering spaces. Questions around how do we incentivize economic development? How do we ensure businesses' success? How do we make sure that businesses are going to be able to hire and retain employees? What sort of things like housing need to be in place for that to be viable? As we are looking at development, and development is happening, how do we make sure that that is smart development and growth that's happening and it's not just happening willy-nilly, and then what do we do with it? Alongside that, how do we continue to kind of ensure preservation of our green spaces in the Fraser River and our waterways? Again, retaining Fraser's character. And then that big question, how do you pay for all of this? How do we get those public improvements? I think there's also a lot of opportunities that we have kind of at this point in time. That Fraser strategic plan happened in 2017. There have been some improvements that have come out of that plan in terms of pedestrian crossings and some changes on Highway 40 there. Victoria Village was identified as a future neighborhood. And so that is coming to fruition. The Main Street initiative for Clayton Court was part of that strategic plan. But how do we continue to kind of implement those programs and initiatives that were in the plan? How do we revitalize the downtown area and increase visitor rates? I hear frequently that we've got lots of people coming here, they're sleeping here, they're staying here, but they tend to be recreating in the beautiful wilderness around us, shopping and dining in Winter Park, right? How do we bring some of those visitors to our community? Looking to upgrade streetscaping, improving that bike and walkability, public art opportunities. Again, looking at public transit options, improved bus stops. What do we do with parking? Better wayfinding and signage, creating public spaces, really trying to enhance access and capitalize on the Fraser River and improve that user experience, bring people to the Fraser River, but also make sure that we are ensuring, preserving that as a critical waterway. We've got some great community events that have been going on. Sarah Wick's been doing a great job with those. Do we want to expand on those? What does that look like? And then again, continuing to make sure that we are supporting existing commercial development and businesses. We do have a business enhancement grant that some businesses have taken advantage of to do some smaller to medium-sized improvements, but how could we go further with that? So with that, I want to kind of pause and just really have a conversation about what challenges have we missed that we would want to add, what other opportunities do people see, and just really kind of have a discussion about people's vision and what you would like to see in your community and specifically that downtown area. So with that, I think this might be a public unveiling of Frisian. And I'm afraid I can't take credit for this term. Yes, of your town manager, Michael Brack. But if technology works as we're hoping, Michael is going to take some notes for us, and just would love to open it up to the board and the public about what you would like to see in downtown and what you would envision an ideal kind of plan of development.
Okay, so if anybody wants to have input, and I see people out there that I would expect have input, come to the microphone and identify yourself and say whether you live in the town of Fraser. Do they have to say whether they live in the boundaries of the DDA?
Oh, it might be helpful. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'd be curious.
and everybody, you can have 3 minutes.
Great. And I will just add, in case there's burning questions out there, that once we talk about this, we do have some of kind of the more nitty-gritty election information about who is eligible to vote, how to get a ballot. So we will end with that information.
And contact information for Sarah for anything related to the DDA, and election information for anything related to internet for the town clerk.
And people online can also raise your hand digitally. Come on, who's going to be first?
Step aside.
Okay, Barry.
I was hoping to be an Barry Young, I live in the town of Fraser, and I also own a business in the DDA. Everybody in the DDA focus group was very excited about this, and we unanimously voted for it. What I'd like to talk about very briefly is what we see going on in the valley and how important it is, and how we need to make this a more expansive process than just infrastructure. So if you read what the Altera plan is, they're going to build out the base with more restaurants, more shops. They have stated unequivocally their objective is to get people to go there and stay there. If you look at what's going on in Winter Park, you've got Arrow coming up. They've been bugging me for 3 years now to open a tasting room there. They're building 20,000 square feet of retail, roughly half restaurants, half retail. And they have a great location. They might also have a parking problem. And by the way, kudos to the town, Public Works and everything, with the work that the town's done in parking in the mural lots to support existing and very soon to open up businesses is nothing short of a game changer. But Rome also has a requirement to build a certain amount of space. Rendezvous has a requirement to build a certain amount of retail and restaurant space, and they all have a jump on us. So this is very, very important. Again, we're all very, very much in favor of it. I think there are many steps on the way. And one of the thoughts that I've had recently is we need to create a better connection between EDAC and the board. I think we need to do a better job of soliciting, not just from the couple of business owners on EDAC, but all business owners, because they're going to have a lot of great ideas. And we talked about supporting businesses. We talked about building, infrastructure and parking and all that. I think one of the most important things we need to do is make existing businesses very, very successful. It's the Economic Development Advisory Committee. It's been in effect for like 6 years. I'm the only member that was there from the beginning. It was meant to really attract business to Fraser and support it. So my time's about up, but I think one of the things we ought to do to facilitate the success of the TDA is to create a more vibrant connection between EDAC and the board, maybe once a quarter, whatever, come to workshop meetings and what's up. Thank you.
Very specifically in the downtown, physically, what would you like to see? Throw something out there.
Well, parking is huge. And again, what we have now is just phenomenal. We've actually talked to Winter Park and they're going to have problems. I think Sarah really hit the nail on the head. We really need to, over the next few years, build up existing businesses, including 2 new ones that are very, very exciting, opening up in the apartment complex. So what we need, one of the thoughts I have is that our valley is at a stage where there's probably not enough families available to start new restaurants and retail. We need to draw businesses in from Denver. I'll give you a great example. Has anybody been to Stoney's at the base? Stoney's is a huge sports bar in Denver. I've never been there because I don't watch sports, but I do drink. In any event, they opened up in a spot at the base that's had several different businesses. None of them lasted more than a few months, and they're doing really well. So what we need is groups like that, like a Stoney's, to open up something in Fraser. But these are very sophisticated buyers. They have teams of people that do a lot of analysis. So I think what we need to do to build on the parking that we just created is to solicit more input from all the local businesses, not just the couple that are on EDAC. and figure out what over the next few years, while we're building the infrastructure, while we're building the retail, while we're building the residential, what we need to do to attract those Denver type businesses and make everybody successful. And the clock is really ticking. I don't think for a minute that building out the base has a jump on us, because that is a huge undertaking, but they're going to do it. Make no mistake about it. They've been very clear. Their goal is for people to stay there. But Winter Park's got a huge jump on us with 20,000 square feet at Arrow. So we need to make all our as a to tourists, residents. I go to like social events and people live in the park say, I don't come to Fraser, it's too far away. Are you joking me? But that's the attitude some people have. Anyway, I'm way past my time, but I think let's really work on creating a better way of having edicts solicit information from other businesses and a better bond between the board and me. I'll let you go.
Thank you, Barry. Steve Fitzgerald, not a resident of the town, lived just outside the city limits, wish we were inside them, and will not be in the voting district. I do, however, occupy two roles. One is a member of the Public Arts Committee, kind of the counterpart to the EDEC, which we fondly call PAC, and thank you all to support for NICE and the Colorado Snow Sculpture Championships, which we just concluded. And then secondly, the role that I want to speak from in this meeting is the president of Fraser Valley Arts, the not-for-profit that was formed to fund, build, and then operate, hopefully, the Fraser Center for the Creative Arts. We sort of have two asks. And when I say we, I think it's important for the town board and to know that on the video in this room are at least 4, maybe 5 individuals who have contributed tens of thousands of their own dollars to this mission. The town has contributed substantial money to this mission. And what we would like to see is an arts center that is in the new district that funds and fuels visitation, much to Barry's point about why would people come to Fraser. We want to create a reason why people come to Fraser. We want to have a 175 to 200 seat auditorium in which individuals will come from Winter Park, from Grand Lake, from Denver to see events. And there is really no other venue like that in our valley, period. So that's our goal. Related to that goal is a huge issue, which I'll talk about in the town meeting, parking. The second thing we would humbly submit that's going to be an essential part of the vision for, or the Frisian, which I love, is going to be a measure of centralized parking solution. Because I can tell you, having worked very closely with an architect on the potential design for the center, our biggest obstacle is going to be parking. And if we were to do either the mural park or the proposed new site, there's some of the biggest sites in this area. And we're having a challenge coming up with the parking. So a centralized solution could solve a whole lot of our people's concerns and issues. That's our input. Any questions? Great, thank you.
Antoinette, can you make me a co-host so I can put some resources in the chat for everybody?
Hello all, Bob Wolf here. I live in town, just east of the district. But anyway, I sat on the Downtown Development Authority Committee throughout this process also, and went through all the presentations and certainly voted in favor of the process that we're the next steps here. As the first two gentlemen have commented about parking, that is the biggest issue that we face in Fraser. And I don't think that we can hold off any longer on not addressing it. And I think that's part of this Frisian that needs to be top level. We all saw what happened with all the parking with the fire and ice here. Safeway is not the parking lot for Fraser. And it's not fair on the business of Safeway to be providing the parking for Fraser. And we also have this big parking problem here. So Victoria Village needs to, within the process of that, needs to design some parking to go along with that. You know, if we need to build a structure, let's get going on building this structure first. Don't be waiting until after the structure is built and then build things afterwards. Winter Park, I'm involved with the ski area up there, and their vision is, as Barry is saying, is a lot of action up there. And their first stuff is to start building 1,400 parking decks up there for parking issues. So I hate to harp on the parking, but I think Barry's been harping on it for a couple years here now. And I say, I think it's great for Fraser. What we're trying to do, we're trying to create our own identity here. My other vision for the Riverwalk district is to really be involved with the architectural design. We really need to enhance the river part. We can't design buildings that face Clayton Court and have nothing on the backside that go along with the river. We need to have decks. If we're trying to get restaurants there, we need to do other ideas to enhance all that area. You go to all these other areas that use their river, and that's the biggest thing that brings them in is, so we can't be going along the river and have straight buildings on the back. So we need to make sure that we're part of that design committee when all that happens. So other than that, I think I can't vote, but I think it's great for the town of Fraser. So thanks a lot.
Thank you.
I'm Paula Stewart. I'm about to be the outgoing chairman of EDAC, and I was also a member, excuse me, of the DDAC committee. And I would like to advocate that the town support the creation of a 501c3 called Downtown Merchants Association or something like that. I was a member of a board of an entity of that name in Westport, Connecticut as a local banker. And I think that there are many voices that are not being heard in the town of Fraser. And it's not just this immediate downtown area, but also where Murdoch's is. I mean, there are a lot of businesses here, and they don't seem to necessarily participate. But I think that if there were an entity, that whether it's in place of EDAC or in addition to EDAC, where they had a voice, I think that would be helpful. And the other thing I'd like to advocate for is making sure that there is some green space, some park space in the Riverwalk area. And I think it would be a real mistake to have it be cheek to jowl, zero lot line buildings. So thank you.
Hello. My name's Jeremy Emil. I live in Fraser. I'm actually a 5th generation Fraser Valley resident. Running for mayor even, which we'll talk about that at another point. I've noticed a lot of you guys talk about parking being our #1 problem, which yes, parking is a problem. Winter Park, Fraser, and all points in between. We're kind of looking at a problem with the housing. People can park everywhere that they want, but if there's nobody that can live in this town to run the businesses, to serve your food, all that stuff, then we're not really getting anywhere, if you know what I mean. So that being on one side, on the other side, I am all for Riverwalk, and that goes right through my parents' property. And, you know, if they have to sell, then that's great. I'm for that, and so is my father. However, one of the things, if we're going to do all that stuff, we have to do not only housing for people that live and work here, but we have to do something for the people that want to open businesses here. And that means kind of maybe doing a rent cap on, there's a lot of people that have opened businesses in this town and other towns surrounding that have lost everything that they've had in a couple of months because they can't afford the rent. And that's the biggest problem I think that we're facing as a valley, Fraser, Winter Park combined, both towns. We're not facing a parking problem. That's a huge problem, yes, but we're facing a housing crisis. We have for the past 20, 30, 40 years. It's always, well, if you can't afford to live in Winter Park or Fraser, move to Tabernash. Can't afford to live in Tabernash, move to Granby. Can't afford to live in Granby, move to Hot Sulphur. If you expect somebody to move to Hot Sulphur and then make that commute every day just so they can work a serving job, that's our main problem. It's not parking, it's housing, and it's rent, and it's keeping people's livelihoods and their shops open. It's keeping people in their houses. We can find places to park. We park on the streets all the time. And we always have, even though it says no parking. Whatever. I'll be back in the morning to get my truck outside of Fisher's. That's our main problem. Not parking. And it will never be parking. It will be keeping business here. And you can't afford to pay it. I can afford to pay it. No, we just need to make it so everyone can pay it. And if you want to have a job and open a shop and you want to live in this town, you should be able to do it. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Megan Luther. I have a house and a business that's in that DDA. So this is awesome. Barry made good points. Bob, Jeremy, everybody. Yes, parking's an issue. I don't know if you guys have explored. I know you've talked about it on some board meetings and stuff too, but taking over the section of 40 from CDOT, if that's at all possible in the realm to do diagonal parking and slow traffic down. You know, we have like a 4-lane freeway. It's 35, but people are flying through town. So just slowing that down would be helpful. And then just to reiterate, yes, the parking structure, I know it's super expensive, but it's definitely needed. And then the walkability around town. And like Bob said, putting stuff on the river. Like that's so cool. And everything that we have that's going to be created there, if it's commercial on the bottom, patios out back, whatever it might be, that would be super helpful. Thanks.
I'm Andy Miller. I've got a home and a business in the DDA, and I'd like to speak kind of against parking. We look to the Breckenridge model where they've got outlying parking garages and a vibrant bus system. We need a better bus system. Breckenridge funded their bus system with a seat tax on Vail Associates on lift tickets. The ski area used to almost fully fund our bus system, and now really all they fund are the buses from the outlying lots. So it was a pretty heavy lift to go to Vail Associates and get that 50 cent a seat tax, which is not much on a $250 lift ticket. But it enabled them to build outlying parking lots and have very frequent bus service into the community. And the other thing is we have a train, and it was wonderful. I went up to the meeting when the governor came up on the train a few weeks ago, and CDOT is running a $5 million study right now of enhancing our train service here. When I was a kid up here, we had 3 trains a day, 3 passenger trains every day. And those 2 of those trains were in a steamboat. And steamboats driving this, and we're starting to get on board with this too. So we need to bring people here without their cars, is what it boils down to. They do come with their cars. They can park in a lot outside of town, close to town, catch a bus and come into the community. We give up too much for automobiles, and we give up too much extremely valuable real estate. And the employee housing that we're talking about, I hope that we can continue on the model where an employee that has a car pays a bit more for a parking space. Because fortunately, young people are starting to get this message and don't own cars. And that's having a lot smaller impact on the community. So really excited about this. We've got kind of the forgotten neighborhood over there where Jeremy lives and I live, but we are part of the DDA, and it'll be interesting to see what happens with that part of that very residential neighborhood that will slowly be incorporated into the commercial uses here. So thank you.
My name is Tim Kepke. I've got a building in Fraser. I don't live here. I live in Tabernash. I'm taking a little bit different take. Everybody's all excited about all these beautiful visions and it's all good and I can't argue with people wanting to improve their communities. But that's my question. What is the community? I've been here for 40 years. It's not the same community that it was 40 years ago, obviously, but it's no longer really a community per se. A lot of the people I've known that have lived here for a long time, raised their families, built Fraser, well, didn't even built it, just lived here because they wanted to live here and did what they had to do. Safeway came in, all these bigger businesses came in, which were beneficial. But now we're looking at just like Winter Park. Winter Park is not what it used to be. It's not a community, it's a resort. And the question is that what we want for Fraser? Do we want Fraser to be a resort? And all the things we're talking about are bringing more money into the community. Okay, that's good. I'm a entrepreneur. I like increasing my business, but there's a price to be paid for that. And that price is that a lot of the small businesses, the people that live here that don't bring a lot of money, won't be able to live here. Like Jeremy was saying, they won't be able to live here. My family, they can't realistically, my daughters, her family can't realistically live here and expect that they build because the property values go up, the cost of rent goes up, everything goes up. And so the solution is workforce housing. Well, that's not a life. That's a box over there where people come to work. They have a place to live. It helps the businesses, but it doesn't help you. So that's my question. What are we really trying to achieve here? A community or just another resort? And I think that's what we're trying to do. Just create another resort. Everybody makes a little bit of money, but there's no community. And that's why I'm totally against it. The other thing is, I look at the initiative, the language of that, you got to be a damn word to be able to understand what the hell is going on. But there are two things. One is $25 million and one is $74 million. Well, that's a lot of money. That's 25 is what, more than double the annual budget for Fraser. And we're at the people that support the town to support this. And there's only one way that can happen. The value of the property tax is going to have to go up. You talk about curves going up. Well, that's people financing clear vision specific and a lot of money that's going to who knows where. And that's going to lead to, hey, we got to pay for all this. See, that. It just continues. That's the normal people that would call this a community. They're not going to be here anymore. I've seen Vail. I've seen all these other major ski resorts. There's no local people. The workers, the young people that come in, they live in a box. They don't have a house. They don't have a chance to have a house. And that's what we're proposing. I'm not saying well, I guess I'm saying it's the wrong way to go. So I would like to see a little more clarity on what we're spending $25 million before I hand over hard-earned dollars to just yet another program in this town that is not going to benefit my family in the least. Yeah, I can have a business here and make money, but I'm living, somewhere else. So it's not my town. And that's what I see Fraser evolving into. I was hoping it wouldn't do that. We saw what happened in Winter Park. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. little bit in dollars. And keep sure spending more and more money. It's never interest taxes. Well, all these ideas people are talking about, it's gonna cost a hell of a lot of money. And they're going up.
Okay, have a few slides. So I do want to try to get through this information. I agree there is a whole lot of legal jargon in here. I would prefer that again by Colorado. We did work legal counsel to draft the issues. A author were to be to now, who can vote in this election? You have to be within those proposed DA boundaries. We have this map up on our website. It's also in the info sheets that are on the table. You can see that larger printout there as well. Within the proposed DDA boundary, it still is kind of a unique set of circumstances regarding who is eligible to vote. Residents within the DDA boundary who are registered to vote in Colorado, landowners within the DDA boundary, and then business lessees within the DDA boundary. Okay. If you are a entity like an LLC or a corporation who owns land, has a business, is a lessee, you would designate they call it a natural person. You would designate an individual to vote on your behalf. That individual has to be 18 years of age and a US citizen. In terms of how you would get a ballot, the only people who automatically should receive a ballot are residents with a voter registration address within the DDA or landowners who are natural persons versus like an entity or LLC and are registered to vote in Colorado. Okay. All this to say, Antoinette has been working very hard to compile all these lists and hopefully get out the ballots to the people who should be getting them. But if you should be receiving one automatically and come that second, third week of March, we're sending them out between March 11th and March 18th. You don't receive a ballot, please let us know. All other eligible electors or special electors must complete an affidavit. So we do have those affidavit table over there. We have mailed them out to people that we know own property or have businesses within the town of Fraser. But you can also get them off our website or come into town hall. So if you are a landowner, for example, who is not registered to vote in Colorado, you might be a landowner who lives in California, you would have to complete an affidavit to request a ballot. The same thing if you are an entity, an LLC or a corporation, they have to complete an affidavit that is going to designate a natural person to vote on behalf of that entity and to request the ballot. If you would like to receive a ballot by mail versus coming into town hall to request it, we ask that you submit your affidavits no later than March 18th to ensure you have enough time to receive that ballot, that ballot be mailed to you. And one person gets one vote. So if you are a resident Jack, you live within the DDA boundaries, so you're eligible to vote for that reason. You also own an automotive shop within the DDA boundaries, so you could vote for that reason. You still only get one vote. Okay. If your automotive shop is an LLC, then that LLC can designate a different person to vote on behalf of the LLC. So you could designate your buddy Ralph to do so. So one person, one vote. If a property is owned or business is owned, there's 5 different lessees in one property. That is 5 votes. So again, it's somewhat complicated. We've learned a lot through this process. We are happy to try to share information and help everybody understand and get a ballot if they should have a ballot. But it's definitely its own set of circumstances. So I have a QR code for you that you can't see. There are pros and cons for this measure, which are on the slide. I can try to share again. But otherwise, they are on the information sheet that's on the table there as part of the different packets. Pros and cons are also listed on our website. So you can find them there.
And Sarah, to be clear, it needs to be an owner of the property. You can't be a renter in the property to have a vote, correct?
No, renters get a vote as well.
You get a vote.
So if the property is owned by Antoinette, the renter is Michael, they each have a vote.
Okay, so on the Coastal building, for example, they have 20 tenants, 2 people per unit. That's 40 people, so they would all get to vote, plus the owners of the property get to vote. Even though they're not kind of minimized, they're just tenants.
Correct.
And the owners of the businesses.
Yeah.
Yeah, so make sure we get that.
Let me try this one last
ballot.
time here.
Is the ballot language finalized?
It is. Yeah.
Is there gonna be some explanation? Because that first one, I agree, is really wordy and difficult for lay people to understand. Are you gonna dumb it down? So,
I mean, we try as much as possible to provide information on our website. I know we're also likely to have a couple more. Katie may be hosting a couple of public forums if anyone else would like to, just to try to help people understand the ballot issues. We worked with the lawyer to try to dumb it down more, but again, we're just required to have certain language in
I
there.
mean, so the state of Colorado sends out,
How about make it clear?
Yeah.
I mean, it's,
People like.
it's-
Well, I apologize. Dumb it down is not the correct word of choice, but
Goes on
it is
to make,
make it clear for lay people to understand.
yes, clear for lay
Like the
people.
state of
Thank you.
Colorado sends out that booklet every year, right? For
Right.
every election. And then it has something like this language, and then they explain what it means.
Yeah.
So I think we should do. a
I mean,
better
the
job.
gist of it, as best as I can explain it, is this authorizes the Downtown Development Authority over the 30-year lifetime of the entity to be able to take on debt up to an amount of 25 million with a maximum repayment amount of 74 million. And to be able to use that money towards projects that are part of this plan of development.
Is the 30-year timeline in here? I didn't see that.
It is not in
Because
the
the
ballot
25
language.
million does jump out at you, and then the 70.
It
so that
definitely
needs to be
does.
explained. It's 25 million over 30 years,
Right.
or, anyway. You get my
We
point.
have gone over time. I think we'll have to, some of these things will have to be cleared up later.
Okay. So let me just leave you with, if you would like more information, again, we've tried to put up as much information as possible on our website. If you just want to go to the search bar on our website and put in Downtown Development Authority, DDA 2024 election, it will get you here. These QR codes will also take you there. But there's more information explaining what a Downtown Development Authority is, how tax increment financing works, plans of development, examples from other communities, as well as all the election information regarding who is eligible to vote and how to go about getting a ballot, accessing those affidavits.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, Sarah.
Thank you all.
Okay, yeah, thank
And
you, Sarah.
I'd like to say that I'm thrilled at the turnout and all the input that we've received.
Yeah, thank you all for coming.
And
Great.
we will be back at 6 for our regular meeting.
I have a feeling already. Right?
It was. That's how it goes. That's how it goes.
And I'm sorry, your name was. It will say your information.
How was
I don't know.